Last winter, I stayed alone in my grandfather's cabin deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and one night something knocked on my door. But when I looked outside, there was nobody there, and a few minutes later, I heard my own voice coming from the woods. Hi everyone and welcome to Mr. Unknown Storyteller. If you are new here, hit subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon for more stories like that. We dive into darkest, chilling horror stories. Tonight's story is something that still messes with my head. And honestly, even talking about it makes my stomach feel weird. Because this happened to me when I was completely alone in the mountains of Appalachia. And if you know anything about those mountains, you know people out there don't joke about what lives in those woods. This happened about 2 years ago when I moved into my grandfather's old cabin. The place was deep in eastern Kentucky, like really deep in the mountains, the kind of place where GPS stops working and the road turns into dirt about 10 miles before you even reach the property. My grandpa had lived there for almost 40 years, and when he passed away, nobody in the family wanted the cabin. Too remote, too quiet, too far from everything. But honestly, that's exactly why I wanted it. I was burned out from city life. Constant noise, people everywhere, traffic, stress. So when my mom asked if anyone wanted the cabin, I said, yeah, I'll take it. Looking back now, that might have been the worst decision I ever made. The first day I arrived there, I remember thinking the place looked beautiful, tall pine trees everywhere, fog rolling to the mountains. The air smelled cold and clean, and the cabin itself was this old wooden place sitting on top of a hill. It looked peaceful, but there was something about the woods around it, something that felt off. You ever get that feeling when a place is just too quiet? Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're being watched. Yeah, that kind of quiet. Anyway, I ignored the feeling. I unpacked my stuff, cleaned up the cabin a little, got the fireplace working, and by the time night came around, I was actually feeling pretty good about the whole thing. Until I went into town that evening. There's this tiny gas station about 20 minutes down the mountain, the only place around for miles. When I walked in to grab some snacks, the old guy behind the counter asked where I was staying, so I told him, my grandpa's old place, the Harper cabin up on Miller Ridge. The guy froze for a second, not dramatically or anything, just a small pause. Then he looked at me and said something that I didn't think much about at the time. He said, "Oh, that place." And then he leaned forward a little and said, "You staying there alone?" I nodded, and he stared at me for a couple seconds before saying, "Son, if you hear something knocking at your door late at night." He paused, like he was deciding if he should even finish the sentence. Then he said, "Just pretend you didn't hear it." I laughed a little, because I thought he was messing with me, like some local ghost story or something, but the guy didn't laugh back. He just rang up my stuff and said, "Just trust me." And that was it. I drove back up the mountain, thinking the dude was just being weird. But later that night, around midnight, when the power suddenly went out, and I heard the first knock on my door, that's when I realized that old guy wasn't joking. Not even a little. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. And I swear to God, every instinct in my body told me, do not open that door. The handle twisted slowly, and the back door creaked open just a few inches, and I swear my entire body locked up right there in the kitchen. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like a drum. The hallway was dark except for the weak glow of the candle behind me, and through that tiny crack in the door, cold air slid into the cabin, thick damp, carrying that strange smell the mountain get late at night, like wet dirt and rotting leaves. And then I heard it breathing slowly, not like a person trying to be quiet, more like Something that didn't understand it was supposed to hide the sound, just standing there on the porch, breathing, and my grandfather's voice whispered again, "Kiddo, you gonna let me in or what?" And the way it said it made my stomach twist because the tone wasn't right. It sounded like him, but it didn't feel like him. Like someone repeating a line they heard in a movie without understanding what it meant. I slowly backed away from the hallway, gripping that kitchen knife so hard my hand started shaking, and my phone buzzed again in my pocket. I nearly jumped when it vibrated. I pulled it out and saw another message from Dale. It said, "Is it at your place now?" My fingers were shaking so bad it took 3 tries to type back. Yes, the 3 little dots appeared showing he was typing. Then another message popped up. "Listen to me real carefully." Another pause, then, "Do not let it see you." My chest tightened reading that, because I suddenly realized something. If that thing outside the door was copying voices, it probably learned them by listening, which meant it had been close to the cabin before tonight, maybe watching, maybe waiting, and right then the door creaked open another inch, just a little more, and something scratched slowly along the wooden floor outside, like long fingers dragging across the boards, and I felt that deep gut feeling again, the one that tells you something is wrong even when your brain hasn't caught up yet. I slowly stepped backward into the living room, trying not to make a sound, trying not to breathe too loud. The candle on the table flickered as I moved past it, and behind me, from the kitchen hallway, the voice spoke again. But this time it wasn't my grandpa. It was me. My exact voice, same tone, same breathing, saying the exact words I said earlier. "Hello." Hearing my own voice come from that hallway made every hair on my arm stand up. It sounded so real, so perfect. If I hadn't known better, I would have sworn someone recorded me and played it back. Then it repeated it again, but slower, like it was practicing. "Hello?" And I swear right then I heard something shift just inside the kitchen, like a foot stepping across the floor, which meant that thing wasn't just at the door anymore. It was inside the house. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might pass out, because that meant the only thing between me and it now was a dark hallway, and whatever that thing was, it was learning. Then the floor creaked once, then again, slow steps, dragging slightly, moving from the kitchen into the hallway. And suddenly the voice spoke again. But this time it wasn't copying anymore. It was combining voices, my voice and my grandfather's, twisted together in this horrible broken imitation. "Hey, kiddo, hello?" And I felt pure panic hit my chest like a punch. I turned off the flashlight on my phone and crouched behind the couch, trying to make myself small, try to disappear into the shadows, because Dale's message kept echoing in my head. "Do not let it see you." The hallway stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I heard sniffing loud, wet sniffing, like something trying to smell the air. Then one more step. The old wooden floorboards creaked so loud I was sure I could hear my heartbeat. And then the worst sound of the entire night happened, because from the hallway, in the darkness, my own voice whispered again, but this time it said something I had never said before. "I can hear you breathing." And my entire body went cold, because that meant the thing wasn't just copying anymore. It was thinking, and the moment that voice whispered, "I can hear you breathing," I felt my chest lock up like the air had been sucked out of the entire cabin. Because the worst part wasn't just that it knew where I was, it was that the voice sounded excited, like it had finally figured something out. I stayed frozen behind the couch, barely letting air leave my lungs, trying to breathe so slowly it wouldn't hear me again, and the cabin went completely silent for a few seconds. No footsteps, no sniffing, nothing, just that horrible feeling that something was standing in the hallway, listening, thinking, and then the floor creaked again, one slow step, then another, moving out a hallway and into the living room, and I swear to God I could feel it getting closer, even though I couldn't see. The candle on the table flickered harder, shadows crawling across the walls, and then something moved to the edge of the light. Just for a second, and my brain struggled to understand what I had just seen, because it looked like a person, but wrong, tall, way too tall. Its shoulders hunched forward like its bones were bent in places they shouldn't bend, and its arms hung down almost to its knees. The skin looked pale and stretched tight across its body like it didn't quite fit, and its head was tilted sideways at this unnatural angle, like it was trying to listen better. And then it spoke again, this time using my voice perfectly, not broken anymore, not practicing, just calm and clear. "You're hiding." Hearing my own voice come from that thing made my stomach twist so hard I thought I might throw up. I pressed my hand over my mouth, trying not to breathe, trying not to move, and the creature took another step forward into the candlelight. And that's when I saw its face, except it didn't really have one, not like a normal face. Its features looked unfinished, like clay that someone had started shaping but never finished. Its eyes were dark pits sunk deep into its skull, its mouth stretched too wide across its face. And when it opened that mouth, I saw rows of thin, crooked teeth, almost human, but not quite. And then it spoke again, this time using my grandfather's voice, soft and familiar. "Kiddo, don't hide from me." And something about hearing that voice come from that thing snapped something inside me, because suddenly I realized it wasn't just copying voices. It was trying to use whatever voice would make me come out, and that meant it had probably been doing this for a long time, maybe to other people in these mountains, maybe to anyone stupid enough to answer the door. My phone vibrated again in my hand, and I nearly dropped it. Another message from Dale popped up. "If it's inside, you need to leave." I typed back as quietly as I could. "It's in the living room." There was a long pause, then another message appeared. "Then it already knows your voice." My heart sank reading that, because now I understood why Dale said that earlier. The creature took another slow step toward the couch, its long fingers dragging across the wooden wall beside it, making this awful scratching sound, and suddenly it spoke again, but this time it said something new, something I had never said before. "Come out, I won't hurt you." And the voice sounded almost convincing, almost friendly, except the thing say it looked like something dragged straight out of a nightmare. And then I heard something else outside, faint at first, but growing louder, a distant knock, 3 taps echoing to the trees, knock, knock, knock. The creature froze in the middle of the room, its head snapping toward the front door, and for the first time that night it looked confused. The knocking came again, louder now from somewhere out in the woods. Knock, knock, knock. And the creature slowly turned its head toward the sound, like it was listening to something calling it. And then it did something that made my blood run cold. It smiled, that stretched, crooked smile widening across its unfinished face, and in my voice it whispered, "Another one." Then it turned away from the couch and started moving toward the front door, its long arms swaying as it walked, the floor creaking under every step. And when it reached the door, it didn't even open it normally. It just bent its body sideways, squeezing to the narrow gap it had left earlier, bones popping softly as it forced itself outside. And just like that, it disappeared into the darkness of the Appalachian woods. I stayed behind the couch for a long time after that. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. I don't even know. I was too afraid to move, too afraid that if I stood up I'd see that thing standing somewhere in the house waiting for me. But eventually the sun started rising to the windows, pale gray light filling the cabin, and the woods outside finally started making normal sound again. Birds, wind, the distant rustling of leaves. And that's when I realized something that still keeps me awake at night. Because when I finally checked my phone again, there was one last message from Dale, sent about 20 minutes earlier, and it simply said, "It's at my door now." I tried calling him immediately, over and over, but he never answered. The police went up there later that morning, but they never found Dale. No sign of the struggle, no footprints, nothing. His house was just empty, front door slightly open, like someone had stepped outside in the middle of the night and never came back. I moved out of that cabin 2 days later, packed everything I owned, and left those mountains behind. But sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet, I still think about what Dale told me about how it learns voices, because a few weeks ago, around midnight, I heard 3 slow knocks on my apartment door. Knock, knock, knock. And then from the other side, I heard Dale's voice whispering, "Hey man, open up." And the scariest part is, Dale's been missing for 2 years.